Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. Hope that you're doing well. Hope that your world is polite and loving and giving you the positive feedback that you need. Uh, I hope that all of the people that have stood you up on dates are dramatically reevaluating their life choices. Uh, all of the people that have sent you emails are really, really wondering why they wasted your time when that didn't need to be sent in the first place. How is everybody tonight? Matt, good to see you. Tuna, thanks so much for the subscription. Yeah, 39 months. That is almost 2 whole years. It is. It is. Evo, what's up, my friend? Good to see you. Hope that you're doing well. We've got a world. Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. Better now that the storms and tornadoes have passed. Yeah, tornadoes are no good for anybody. I'm glad that they are past your zone as well. And for anybody that might be in the path of storms, I hope that you weather them well. I don't know if it's necessarily the right time to give a pun there, but I guess we'll just roll with it. And I'm a horrible person. Doing really well. That's great. That's great. I'm doing okay-ish. If I'm being honest, I have not slept very well in the last few nights. We had storms last week, and it really threw off my sleep schedule because I had a day in the middle of the week. So we were actually off Wednesday from all school. The entire campus was shut down. So I stayed up late and then had to wake up again Thursday morning. And so then I woke up early Thursday morning and Friday morning. And then I actually woke up very, very early Saturday morning for bird watching. And my sleep schedule has just been chunked since then. The pupper is a big mess. She's ultimately fine in the actual scheme of health, but she has been very, very itchy lately, and my wife is going to take her to the vet tomorrow. She has previously, the dog, been prescribed an anti-allergen medicine that we haven't been giving it to her for a while because it's sort of been died down to the point that it seems manageable. But man, in the last few days, she's just been consistently scratching and itching, and scratching herself to the point that she's scratching bloody spots into herself and making hot spots where she's just chewing and licking. So she needs some relief there. So we're going to get that to her tomorrow, and hopefully that will smooth over a lot of the stuff, and she'll be back to her normal, lazy, fluffily self. This hasn't stopped her from barking at every single noise in the world. This hasn't stopped her from being a little diva, right? Yeah, there's so many bugs in our yard. There are these little biting midges that will bite the junk out of you, and it just itches like crazy. And Brittany's had to basically adopt a policy where if she goes into the yard at all, she's got to basically cover everything up. Like wear shoes, wear socks, wear long pants, wear long sleeves, gloves a lot of the time, because these little guys, they don't really get very far off the ground. They're not going to bite me in the on the neck or anything like that if I'm out in the backyard, but man, they will eat your feet. And of course the dog will go outside and lay out in the yard and sprawl, and her entire body is in the mid-range at that point. So yeah, we've got mosquitoes too. The unseasonable warmness has kicked the mosquitoes into high gear already, and I'm not very pleased about that. But There we go. That is the pup date, if you will. But thanks for asking. She's okay, and it the scenario on Sunday wasn't as bad as I thought it was. The biggest issue was that I couldn't tell how bad it was quickly, and with me being on stream, I needed to like hold her down and like play into her fur because she's got really really thick fur, and see if she had actually done something bad to herself. And it was on her foot as well, and then it was like there were some spots on the floor where she had scratched herself really really badly and was bleeding on her toenail, and that was hitting the floor. So I didn't know what was going on. So it was just a needed thing. I don't really like bailing out of stream that fast, but you got to take care of the pupper, right? Yeah, mosquitoes are horrible. I don't like any of them. They can all be eaten and sent back to hell where they belong. So there's that. So we are doing a viewer request on a Thursday, which is kind of rare because we were supposed to be doing this stream on Tuesday. Aforementioned lack of sleep has struck again, and I prepared the entire stream and then did not save it to the cloud folder, and it sat on my computer hard drive at work, and I didn't realize that I had neglected to save it to the cloud until I was about halfway home. So at that point, I was not going to turn around and drive 30 minutes back to work just to get the outline. And the material that we're going to be talking about tonight is not one that lends itself to relying purely on my knowledge, regardless of how good you think my knowledge is. The dates, especially for tonight's material, are just enormously complicated. And a lot of this stuff is happening at the same time, and a lot of this stuff is happening with the same players in different levels at the same time. And it's just really messy. Okay. I was just making sure that the puppy cam was activated in case the puppy decided to come in here. Notice DCI Banks is conspicuously absent for this one. I think he was actually the one that suggested this, if I'm correct. I'm not 100% certain about that, but he also has a work schedule that fluctuates a little bit, so he might be working at the moment. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, let's kick it off. So, it was you. Okay, cool. I can't. When we do these where we have to vote on stuff, I can't ever remember who got them unless it was a big thing that people were like really pushing for multiple times. Or if Brittany's talked to me about it and said something like, I think I'm going to suggest this one. Because, again, Brittany has really good luck with getting people to vote for her ideas. So, anyway. You can't imagine the British coming out looking good after this stream. Well, I mean, there's a lot of conquest, and there's a lot of bad faith dealing, and there's a lot of death. And it's not necessarily a positive thing, but we do kind of need to kick it off and get going because it's also way too much material for one stream. Even with me condensing rather judiciously, there's just too much material to talk about all of this stuff. So, where are we going to start? Well, we're going to start with a group of people called the Mughal Empire, and we're going to note that they are the big, powerful ruler in India at this time. And eventually I'm going to be able to open my notes to type Mughal Empire. And we're going to start with a ruler named Jahangir, because he's going to be instrumental for some of this early stuff. Here is a picture of him. We're going to get some pretty cool artwork tonight. Some of these Mughal leaders are going to have pretty great images. Yeah, he's pondering his orb, right? With really cool wicked sun lines around his head. But this is Jahangir, and he was the ruler that's really going to start this whole thing off. The British are going to approach Jahangir's position with this guy. This guy's name is Thomas Roe, R-O-E. And this is going to be the relationships that sort of starts the whole thing off here. Thomas Roe was a British businessman and had been sent by James I, King of England, specifically to the court of Jahangir to open trade. And the goal here was for Britain to catch up. Britain was lagging behind fairly dramatically when it came to trade in global sense, but especially trade in India. They had started trying to catch up with trade from North America, but they had lost big time on trade with India. And the Dutch and the French were already way ahead when it came to trade with India. So it was going to need some sort of special something to get the British into the game. And Roe was very successful. He brought with him a lot of stuff from Europe that were luxury items, including lots of fancy European alcohol, and gets into Jahangir's court and is going to become a fairly frequent member of the party crew of Jahangir, and is going to eventually convince the Mughal emperor to allow the British to trade. And specifically, the deal that they're going to make is going to allow British ships to trade at any port in India. And this is a big, big deal because that wasn't something that any of the other countries at that time really had. And this also very much angered the Portuguese, who had been sort of the leading trade partners with the Mughal Empire already. And Jahangir went one step further and not only said that the British were going to be able to trade at any port, that he would personally guarantee that the Portuguese would not threaten British trade. And he did so by making it very clear that the Portuguese were not to harass or threaten or even posture as if they were going to do so against the British. And this is going to allow for a very rapid expansion of trade, mostly around the south and eastern parts of India. So we're going to be talking about down here and over here. Just a little bit about Indian geography. Again, this region right over here is frequently referred to as Bengal. It's modern Bangladesh, which is Bangladesh. Bengal is similar to that. If we draw our borders on the modern day, you can see that Bangladesh sits right here. This province over here is West Bengal in India, right? So this region is what we're talking about right here. And of course, the big trade city is, in the time of these people that we're talking about, referred to as Calcutta. Today it's Kolkata. So we're talking about this region over here, and this is going to be the British stronghold for a while. But down here in the south especially, they're also going to have some interest. And on the island of Sri Lanka, they're going to have some interest. And that's mostly because the French and Portuguese and Dutch had really dominated trade here along the western coastline, and especially here along the mouth of the Indus River. This was not really open or good for the British. There was a lot of competition over here. So, and I know that I'm talking quickly and sort of moving quickly, but that's in an attempt at getting all of this stuff in. So Jahangir is very important. He's able to set up some deals that the British are going to exploit. But specifically here, it's not the British Crown that's doing most of this work. It's the East India Corporation. And the EIC is very different than the Dutch East India Company or the Dutch East Asia Company. This is run by the British. It is established and run as a joint stock company in the same sort of way, but here not related to any of the other European trade companies. So the British East India Company is the big deal here. Now, things are going to go fairly well and move fairly quickly for the British until we get to a guy named Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb. Ugh. Nope, I can't type here. Come on, type. There we go. Aurangzeb. Not easy to say. Aurangzeb is this guy. He's in the same dynasty, so still leader of the Mughal dynasty. He is going to have a very different tack. By the way, Jahangir does all of this stuff in 1608. So the British are going to expand very rapidly. About 50 years later, we get Aurangzeb here, who takes over in 1658 and rules until 1707. So he's got about a 50-year-long reign. His relationship with the British was quite different. He was very frequently at odds with the British. And the biggest reason he was at odds with the British was the tax money. The British were supposed to be paying taxes. They were supposed to be paying tariffs and trade fees and all of these things. And the British were trying in every way that they could to sort of skirt these. They wanted to get out from under the goods. They wanted to try to make deals with local leaders in India, at like the local leaders that would run the cities like Kolkata. The people that they were going to deal with directly on the docks. They would try to make deals with them. And what this does is creates a multi-tiered system of arrangement where the British are going to take certain goods to certain areas because they know that they have friends that are going to give them better deals in some areas. And then those people are going to be able to do deals under the table, and they're not going to pay their taxes the way that they're supposed to the Mughal Empire. But the British are also not going to be paying the level of taxes that they need to the Mughal Empire. And the goal here that the British are trying to accumulate is let's pay basically the least amount of fees that we can and keep as much money as we can. And it is better for us to lose some money in the form of bribes to these local rulers if we can keep the big ruler off of our back. But Aurangzeb finds out that a lot of this stuff is happening, mostly when the British start trying to play too many deals and the local leaders end up causing trouble amongst themselves. So when the local rulers start fighting and cause issue against the British, and then the British try to respond in kind, this is going to bring the wrath of the emperor down. Nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes, and I'm all out of taxes. Yeah, pretty much. So now it's actually time to start the killing. And this is actually going to start off the killing. And the specific request for this stream was the Anglo-Indian Wars, which is a little bit, I mean, it could be done, absolutely. It would just be a list of wars. I decided to expand that a little bit to a narrative discussion about British conquering India, because I feel like that just is easier to understand instead of just here's a list of wars. But this is the first big one. This is the Anglo-Mughal War, and it's from 1686 to 1690. And this is being fought between the British East India Company and the Mughal Empire. Now, the British East India Company is being reinforced by royal authority and the actual British Navy and some British Army troops, but most of the fighting here is happening between the company and the Mughal Empire. And that's an important distinction because this is the time period where the company is going to be able to establish itself as a literal, basically, country. If we really want to look at it, they can tax people, they can build an army, they can build their own navy, they can recruit people, they can promote people within their own army, they can give them military clearance, they can issue travel documentation. The East India Corporation effectively becomes its own country around this time. And it's a big deal because at this point, they did not have the strongest foothold in India that they thought that they did. And Aurangzeb is going to win this war, the first Anglo-Mughal War in 1690. And as a way to basically force the British into subservience, he makes the leaders of the company show up at the palace and do obeisance to him. So they have to like do like the knee walk and the stretching out on the ground and lying on their faces and bowing and scraping. And he humiliates the crap out of them. This does not go over very well if you are British, because the British leadership don't like being forced to scrape or bow. This is a big, big deal, and it's humiliating. Who needs to be a country when you can become a corporocracy? Yeah, pretty much, Maddie. Well, how's it going, Maddie? And this isn't the end of the relationship here. So when word gets back to the British, Neil before Bob, right, that Aurangzeb has done this to the leadership of the company and their military, there's a big sort of social backlash against this. And one of the groups that takes a lot of umbrage to this is actually British pirates. And the British pirates don't like the fact that the Mughal Empire had embarrassed the crap out of other British people. So British piracy is going to start preying a lot on trade ships for the Mughal Empire. And Aurangzeb is going to basically start sending letters directly to the British Parliament demanding things. And at this point, he's literally saying things like, you better get these pirates under control. And he's telling the British Parliament in letters, here's what you will do. And the British Parliament is obeying him. The Parliament passes lots of rules that basically eliminate all leniency for pirates. If you had been a pirate before, you could save your hide sometimes by coming to work for the British Navy. Sometimes you could be sent to a colony as a payment and not get killed. But basically, Aurangzeb demands that if the British are still going to trade in Mughal Empire, they will kill all the pirates. So that was sort of passed. There's another bill that basically says you are going to make sure that when your people show up, they followed the rules that I have set forward for them to trade. So Parliament has to kind of like tweak down some of the stuff inside of the East India Corporation to make sure that they're now complying with Aurangzeb's rules. It does sound pretty convenient. So this guy is big and powerful, and it should be noted here that we don't talk about this part a lot. You don't really hear about how the Mughal Empire defeated the British and then smacked them down and told them, you're going to do what I tell you to do. But it happened. And it's kind of a bit of a shocking moment. Now, Aurangzeb rules for 50 years. And the British sort of like wait for him to die. They're literally just waiting for him to die. They want somebody new in power. They know that he's got multiple sons. And unfortunately for the Mughal Empire, after a ruler that lasted 50 years, you have adult sons, plural. And when Aurangzeb dies, there's a collapse of central authority. And in 12 years, there are going to be 6 different rulers. And you go, oh, so they ruled 2 years apiece. No, one of them ruled for 5 years, and the other 5 split 7 years apiece. So it's really bad at the leadership position. And while the Mughal power is collapsing, the East India Company is playing sides. They're trying to get into a position where they're going to be buddy-buddy with a new ruler. They're going to try to make sure that whomever is going to take over is going to look favorably upon them, and they're going to end up getting really good deals out of this. They're going to do stuff like, if we help you by paying you more taxes or something like that, or if we make sure that we only trade with people that support you, will you look favorably upon us? And in this sort of chaotic structure, the British are actually going to get really, really good deals. And one of the things that they do that they end up getting out of this is tax-free status if they're trading in Bengal. So if they're doing any sort of trade in Bengal or out of the port of Calcutta, they don't have to pay any taxes or fees on that. That's huge because, again, that was already where they were making most of their money in the first place. Now they're getting tax-free trade or duty-free trade, right? They're also going to get the power to issue these things called Dostocks. Let me get rid of that. Dostocks are really, really important, and they're really, really powerful. These are passes that allow a specific trade exchange to happen without fees or taxes. So this is sort of like a get out of tax free card. And as a corporate / economic / political entity, getting to issue these things was a big deal. Now, they had to walk a little bit of a fine line because they didn't want to abuse this too much, because then we would run right back into the situation where they were previously, where they were ticking the Mughals off really badly because they weren't paying any taxes at all. But the Dostocks are going to be a big deal because this is giving them a lot of authority. If they can designate any trade free trade, that's a big one. This is also going to open up a lot of corruption because at that point, even inside the company, the heads of the company were going to start playing favorites. And if this ship is one that I own and I stand to make more money off of this ship than I do that ship, but I can also issue a Dostock to cancel the fees on my ship, guess what I'm going to do just about every time. This also means that I can be bribed if I'm the head of the company, because I can issue a Dostock to whomever I so desire. And if someone would like to approach me and go, hey, I'm going to give you an extra 5% of the cut of this ship if you allow for it to be tax-free, would you let it be a tax-free trade? And I can go, that sounds lucrative. Yes, I will. And just, you can see where we're headed here, right? This is just headed straight for Corruptionville. Now, the internal struggle is bad enough. And in the early 1700s, the leadership of the Mughal Empire was in really, really bad shape. But what's really going to set the whole thing awry is in 1739. In 1739, Persia is going to invade India, and they invade big time. They're going to sack Delhi, which is the capital. They're going to wreck most of the northwestern part of the country. So all of these big cities up here are going to get wrecked and looted, and many of them get burned. This is going to force a lot of people to flee. It's going to disrupt trade across the entire subcontinent, and it's really going to wreck the Mughal power base. And in the aftermath of this collapse, we're going to see a new player start entering the game. And this is the Empire of Maratha. Now, Maratha is a little bit more southerly. They sit sort of right around in here, in this middle part of the country. The Mughal Empire was power-based up here in the northern central part of India. The Maratha are going to change the game, because the British are going to realize at this point that they don't always have to trade with the Mughals. They can also trade with Maratha. And Maratha was in a position where they were also coming into contact with the French and the Dutch and the Portuguese quite a bit. And this was a potential way for the British to leverage position against their European enemies. So dissolution of central authority in India is good for them. being able to potentially have another ally that they can use to disrupt the balance of trade in Europe, this is good for them. And this is going to be a really big time for the British. And they're going to take advantage of this almost immediately. And the way that they're going to do so is by starting a series of wars that are going to be referred to as the Carnatic Wars. And I've just done something silly to OBS, and I don't know exactly what I've done. But I guess I'll just go with it. All right, the Carnatic Wars. I guess I docked my chat. There we go. Okay, I can do that, and it'll fix it. All right, so there are 3 Carnatic Wars. The first one is 1746 to 1748. The second one is 1749 to 1754. And the third one is 1757 to 1763. So the first one begins in 1746. The last one ends in 1763. What's going to happen here? Well, this actually starts in Europe, over here. And it starts specifically in Austria, because there was a situation in Austria where the guy running Austria died and left the empire to his wife. And there were a lot of people in Europe that said, nah, don't like a woman ruling a country like that. And a lot of other people saw benefit in supporting her. And this is going to be the War of Austrian Succession. But this put France and England on opposite sides of each other, and it just so happens that there are territories, especially down here in India, that the British would love to take from the French, especially right along this coastline here. And this is what is going to happen. We're going to go to war with each other, and we're going to fight each other wherever we are. This is the beginning of globalized war. This is going to continue during the 7 Years' War, which, of course, stretches out of a conflict that started in North America. Over here along the Ohio River, there were some rednecks led by a ginger named George Washington that ran into some French patrols out here in what is modern-day Ohio, and they decided that they were going to start shooting at each other, and this sets off another global war between the British and the French. Yeah, French and the English fighting? Tell me it isn't so. Pretty much. But that's going to ripple effect over here into India. And as a result of these Carnatic Wars, we're going to start seeing British and French companies fighting each other. Not necessarily even just the British military proper or the British Navy proper versus the French Navy or French military proper, but the French Indian companies versus the British Indian companies. So we're going to have company armies that get thrown into this mix, and it just goes crazy for a little while. And it comes down to who's going to control this part of southern India. This is what we're fighting over. Who's going to have access to this? What up, Snowlock? Good to see you. How's it going? And it turns out that the British are going to win. The British end up winning, and the French are going to be forced to accept really bad terms because they lost. First off, the French are only going to be able to have access to trade in 2 cities in this region out of a dozen or so. And they can't have any direct legal authority in the region. They agreed to give up regional governmental authority over areas in India that they had companies running. And as an extra kicker, they had to agree that if British trade company interests were threatened, that they would help the British trade companies retain power. So this is really humiliating for the French. In this area, they're going to lose most of their influence, and they're going to basically have to suck up to the British and help the British if any of the local Indian regional powers cause trouble. This is humiliating, but it leaves Britain as a big, legit player. At this point, Britain has about half of Indian coastline under its trade control. They're going to be able to trade in Bengal for free. They're going to be one of the only people that can trade here along this coastline, and this is a leg up to make a lot more profit. And when you have more profit, it turns out that you can do things like hire more people to fight for you, build more ships, buy more cannons, buy more muskets, and of course just line your pockets with giant stacks of money. Enter a guy named Robert Clive. More profit means higher wages for the workers, right? No. Actually, it means you can pay more wages at a lower rate to native Indian people and get twice as much labor than you would as if you were hiring British people. Yeah, it's crazy how that works. You make a lot of money, and then you outsource your jobs to where it's cheap so that you can keep more of your profit. Natives staying there taking our jobs, right? Robert Clive. Who is Robert Clive? This is Robert Clive. I could do an entire stream on this guy. We don't have time to do an entire stream on this guy. Suffice to say, he was a jerkface. Of all of the British trade people that we talk about tonight, this guy is absolutely the most important single individual in the story, and he's also the most ruthless, bloodthirsty, greedy jerkface that we're going to talk about in the night. He's not someone you want at your birthday party. He's not a nice person. Very punchable face for a very punchable individual. But this brings us to it's Clive o'clock somewhere. What's up with this guy? Well, he had started off in the company as just a podunk guy. And during the First Carnatic War had signed up to fight and had actually done a lot of really good battlefield leadership. And he gets recognized for his sort of ruthless bravado, where he's just kind of a guy that doesn't give up, kind of like a dog on a scent. He's just not going to stop or not going to give up. And during the course of the First Carnatic War, some of his military exploits are going to put him in the circles where he starts rubbing shoulders with the big people in the company that are making decisions. And he ends up getting looped into some of the meetings with local Indian leaders and manages to end up making some deals that's going to be Spartacus. Nixolotl, thank you so much for once again being Spartacus. Much appreciated. If you are not already following friend of the channel and artist extraordinaire Nixolotl, you really should. You didn't hear the alert. Did you see the alert? It could be that the bot is busted. Let me go check Streamlabs. You heard it, but it was quiet. Was that better? Shane McInnes is Spartacus. That's not any better. Interesting. It's about as high as I dare. Quiet still. Okay, maybe I'm going to have to go in and mess with Streamlabs. Okay, So thank you so much, Nixolotl. Everybody go follow Nixolotl, who is doing some really great art on stream and off stream. Really cool person to hang out with on stream. Philosopher. Okay, I dig it. I see where we're going here. Hey, fellow history nerds, what's up? Brit Conquest of India. Nice, indeed. This is a viewer request. We do these usually on Tuesdays, but I was a dum-dum and forgot to bring it home with me, so we're doing it on Thursdays, which is when we normally stream history chronologically as the world has gone on. And we started back at the beginning of history and have gotten now all the way up to like the 1200s. Next week on Thursday, we will be looking at the Mongol conquest of the Middle East and Eastern Europe. So that's what's coming up next week. And the sort of, we call it Adventures in History, going through history. Didn't hear the alert. Heard it, but it was quiet. What was the first Euro nation to have a trade company in India? Trade company? That's a little bit of a different question. Probably the Dutch. The first people that Europeans that ooh, look at all of the. Oh, look, everybody! I'm popular enough that I'm getting bot spammed. Aw. It's been a long time since I've been bot spammed. Ooh, lots of bots. Look at all the bots. Look at me being popular. I feel so special. Banning all the bots. Banning all the bots. Man, OBS makes this way harder than the commands in Twitch proper. Go away. Of all the times. Go away. I don't want to invite them to anything. I'm trying to ban them. So the Portuguese were the first Europeans to trade directly with India. Going all the way back to like, Vasco da Gama. But if we want to specifically ask who was the first one to open a trade company, that's a different step. And the Dutch were the first people that really got trade companies working. So if we're talking about the first people to do trade, period, that's going to be the Portuguese directly. But if we're talking about companies, that's going to probably be the Dutch. Good gravy. So many bots. I just got completely blown up here. Taking me forever to ban all the bots. If only those people were like actual people and I had... What up, Frank? Aloha, my friend. Man, just absolute tons of bots. What up, Natty Science? How's it going, man? Okay, so I feel like I got all of them. Switch to follower only for a minute. No, I think I got them. Okay. Okay, cool. So Philosopher, welcome in first off. I saw that you were a first-time chatter. Good to see you. Welcome in. Hope you're having a good one. And to roughly clarify all of that stuff, if we're talking about first modern European country to sail to India to trade there directly, we're talking about Portugal. If we're talking about first country to set up a company, that's going to be the Dutch. The Dutch were the leaders on that. Wouldn't the first trade period be the Greco-Romans? So the question there is, do we have direct trade? Do we have direct trade between the Roman Empire and the polities in India? That's a tough question. I know that the Romans knew that India was there, but are they sending ships to India directly? I don't think so. I think that most of the Roman Navy is going to be hanging out in the Mediterranean, but I do know that we're going to get merchants from the Middle East that sail from the Red Sea up to Egypt and move stuff in that way. And there's also going to be trade from places like Persia that go along the Persian Gulf that pop over to India. But I don't know if we're going to see a Roman from, say, Roman Egypt getting in a ship and sailing all the way over to India directly to trade and then coming all the way back. I don't know if we have evidence of that. If it did, it wouldn't surprise me too terribly much. We do know that there was idea flow. There's idea flow that, is Indian ideas and India philosophy that's moving over into Central Asia, and then that's sort of affecting stuff over here in Europe. But as for direct trade, I still think it's probably still the Portuguese. Yeah, probably so. GCHQ doesn't like this stream. That's quite possible. Portugal, yeah, the trade modern sense. Sure. What's up, Baylor? What are the British trading with? At this point in history, we're talking about, right now we're talking about Robert Clive, who is going to play a really big role in the mid-1700s in India. The stuff that's moving around is pretty varied, and the British are moving stuff to India, and the Indians are moving stuff out. Obviously, here, spices are still a big part of the trade. Textiles in the form of cotton are pretty big. You're going to see lots of precious metals being moved out of India, and the stuff coming from Britain into India is going to be stuff like manufactured goods. A lot of the local political leaders really like the idea of getting their hands on British muskets. Of course, the company is going to be fairly judicious with trading those to people. They don't want to necessarily get a whole bunch of armed natives. That actually is going to be a problem in about 100 years in India when we talk about Sepoy Rebellion, but that's sort of spoiling the end of the stream. They're also bringing in quite a bit of food. The Industrial Revolution is getting into its earliest kicking off points, and Britain is exporting food at this point. Maybe not all the way to India in the we're going to feed an entire thing kind of way, but like delicacy kind of food, that stuff. Pro tip, armed natives is bad for an empire. This is true. So specifically here we're talking about the 1700s. Yeah. So Robert Clive is fighting in the First Carnatic War, which is sort of his first big foray into Indian affairs, and the First Carnatic War is 1746 to 1748. But he becomes much bigger after that. And I know that we had some new people kind of come in, so once again, wrong button. Here we go. This is Robert Clive. This is the guy that we're talking about right now. Proper British gentleman, right? Also, just as a bit of a refresher, giant jerk face. So, fights in the First Carnatic War, manages to get into the political structure of the company, starts being included in debates, manages to get some really important trade agreements in this region going, and during a particular period of time where Calcutta decides to try to rebel against British influence, he's going to be the one that the East India Company puts in control of the military to go take back Bengal. Specifically, the local Nawab of Calcutta had, and Nawab is like basically a governor, more or less. It's more complicated than that, but we can call him a governor without having to go too deep into it, and it'll be effective. He's the guy that runs the region. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, there are 3 Carnatic Wars. Generic British guy, right? We're talking about the British conquest of India tonight. That's the topic. We started off in 1608, where the company first showed up, and we're going to go all the way through 1857. So at this time, is Britain governing parts of India? Britain as a country, no. The East India Company as a company, kind of. Not completely, but kind of. Anyway, the Nawab of Calcutta, or Kolkata is the modern city, Calcutta was the pronunciation at that time, is going to kick out a whole bunch of British, capture a whole bunch of British, and this is when we get a very famous event that becomes a propaganda moment in history. This is the infamous Black Hole of Calcutta incident, where British soldiers and British East India Company officials are put down in this big pit that is super duper hot and basically fried to death because of the heat. When Clive shows up, he kicks butt and manages to basically take over the city again. This is going to secure his sort of position within the company as a guy that will go to whatever end needs to be gone to accomplish a task. He's also going to fight in the Third Carnatic War. He's going to be very, very influential in the Third Carnatic War. Manages to kick out a lot of local Indian political people, like little puppet rulers and things like that. He's going to replace them with people that are directly answerable to him, and he's also going to start basically making himself a personal fortune. If you can install puppet leaders and you start getting them to bribe you, you make a ton of money. And he is going to be absolutely in favor of as much corruption as possible, as long as it benefits him. During this period of time, there is a very big battle, and this is sort of part of the Third Carnatic War-ish. It's kind of at the beginning of the Third Carnatic War, but it's called the Battle of Plassey. It's in 1757. And it's a really big battle where the British basically end all French control in East India. This is sort of the beginning of the end for the French, and Clive is going to be not directly in the battle, but he's going to be in the atmosphere of the battle. After the Third Carnatic War, he's going to end up going back to England to basically take his fortune and use it for personal gain. He's going to start buying himself positions. He's going to buy his way into Parliament. He's going to make sure that he flexes all of his power to get everything that he could ever want. And he's going to be made a baron, and then he's going to get sent right back to India. And while he's in India the second time, his entire goal is basically build this giant network of extortion and corruption and tax exemption. He is going to get sort of personal ability to issue those Dastak things that I mentioned earlier, these certificates of free trade. He's going to use that extensively to pad his own pockets. And after 1764, there's a really big battle called the Battle of Buxar. And after that battle, his command in northern India is pretty much it. He's going to get a big grant from the Mughal Empire called a firman. The firman is going to allow Britain to trade inland, which is something that is way different than just trading in port cities. And after the East India Company starts opening up trade positions inland, basically Clive runs Bengal. And it's not necessarily going to be British territory, but nothing happens in Bengal without Clive say so. He is effectively a king in his own country. And this is also going to give him a crazy amount of political capital, and he's going to use that to negotiate a firman for the Decca. Again, the Decca, geographically speaking, is this really big plateau right here in central India. And at that point, all of this Bengal region was effectively British. And when they get the firman to trade anywhere here, that's going to put targets on all of these little Indian countries that were in that region, because now basically the company's coming for you. I would want to be a baron just so I could say that, sure. So just like modern Britain. How much of India did France have in the 18th century? They didn't really control any of it directly, except for some port cities. But like territory, not very much square kilometerage or square mileage. They had some fairly nominal, or fairly... They didn't have governments. Like, they weren't running governments, but they had positioned people in places that were going to give them a lot of control in this region right over here, and then along this coastline here. But ultimately... Oh, you can't see that, sorry. Right around here, and especially like right in here, and then right in here. But they're going to lose all of this in the Carnatic Wars, and they're basically about to lose this in the Anglo-Mysore Wars. So the 7 Years' War was more about the Americas than the Indies. The 7 Years' War turned into an entire global conflict. And I say this without any sort of irony or sarcasm. It's the First World War. It really is. World War I should be the 7 Years' War. And it's way more important than a lot of people know about. And honestly, I think that would be a great viewer request stream. So keep that in mind if anybody wants. Or the 9 Years' War if you're an American. Oh, no. So if when we talk about it in America, we call it the French and Indian War, which is really confusing because it assumes that the French and the Indians are fighting, but it's really the French and the Indians versus the English and the colonial English people. So, yeah. Anyway. But that's wrapped up in the Carnatic War. So the first Carnatic War starts out of the War of Austrian Succession, and then the second and the third Carnatic Wars kind of overlap periods of time where the 7 Years' War are. So there's that. Anyway, with this contact here... Oh, I should show this map. This maybe will help us out. So let's look at the map. Everybody's favorite thing to do. Okay. Here we have India in 1765. And if you note, this is at the time... Oop, no, sorry. Here we go. 1760, at the time of Clive. So even a map here literally is saying, like, here's Clive's time period. Bengal here is pretty much under the control of the company. And if you look right here, here's Plassey. This is the big battle that Clive was a part of and gained a lot of... his baronage, by the way, he becomes the Baron of Plassey. Anyway, so this region is pretty much under the control of the country. And this is Maratha. We've mentioned them being a thing. Maratha was big deal because we're about to start looking at this little guy down here. This is Mysore. Right? Mysore is about to go bye-bye. Because the next things that we're going to talk about are the Anglo-Mysore Wars. So, there are... quite a few of these. There are 4 Anglo-Mysore Wars. The first one is 1767 to 1769. The second one is 1780 to 1784. The third one is 1790 to 1792, and the fourth one is 1798 to 1799. Now, this is really going to be more about getting rid of people that the British didn't like than it is necessarily the company trying to establish better trade routes. This is sort of, we're removing opponents to our trade. And most notably, Mysore were some of the biggest French allies in India. Specifically this guy. This guy's name is Hyder Ali. And you can see it here. Here's Hyder Ali. Hyder Ali was the head or the leader, the Sultan of Mysore at the time, ally of the French, and according to British East India Company decisions, he was the enemy. And this is pretty much going to be, again, it's just a war of removing somebody that they didn't like. The British are going to ally with the Maratha, and they're just going to beat the junk out of Mysore. The first war goes kind of questionable, but by the time we get to the second and the third, the British are going to start having the upper hand. And this guy's going to start playing a role in it. If you know anything about the Revolutionary War in America, you may have heard of a guy named Charles Cornwallis. This is Charles Cornwallis here. Of course, Cornwallis was the head of the British Army in the end of the Revolutionary War. He was the guy that decided that it would be better to stop fighting in the New England colonies and move down to the South, where there were more royalists, and wrecked pretty much all of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, but was eventually rounded up at Yorktown and defeated in 1783. He got put on a boat and basically shipped not directly to India, but almost directly to India with some of his soldiers, and told, okay, well, if you can't hold on to the colonies in America, go kill the Mysore. And so Charles Cornwallis had a bit of a chip on his shoulder for losing so badly to those territorials. He also hated the French, and it's also worth mentioning that the Americans would not have won the American Revolution without the aid of the French. So here we have Mysore with French aid, and Cornwallis just beats the crap out of them. This is going to end very badly. The world turned upside down. It kind of did. This guy is going to be the sort of last gasp of Mysore. This guy's name is Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan is going to be in a really rough position. At the end of the Third Anglo-Mysore War, he had to sign away half of his country, basically to stay alive. The British had him at a severe disadvantage. And after giving away half of his country, it did not take very long for the British to come back and demand the rest of it. And Tipu Sultan actually dies in the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. And at that point, there is no more Mysore. This is going to be a giant blow to the French. Oh, I actually have a picture. The Mysore kingdom doesn't get completely destroyed. It just gets co-opted. And the British start picking rulers for it. And we actually do have a picture of one of the last ruler here who survived until the time of photography. This is Krishna Raja Wadiyar III. And he was not the Sultan, but the British East India Company allowed him to keep the title Maharaja, which is basically Big Raja. But the photograph here is pretty cool. So, puppet ruler, but still pretty cool. So, by the time we get to the 1770s or so, you would think, okay, well, everything is going great for the British. But after the first Mysore War, Maratha kind of figures out what's going on in the world with the British, and while the British are fighting the second and third and fourth Mysore Wars, they are also fighting wars against Maratha. And there are 3 Anglo-Maratha wars, and again, these wars are happening at the same time as the second, third, and fourth Anglo-Mysore wars. So the Maratha wars are 1775 to 1782, 1803 to 1805, and then 1817 to 1819. Lots of fighting going on here, ladies and gentlemen. This starts when the British decide to get involved with the leadership of the Maratha. And they sort of want to pick who's going to be in control. And it doesn't go the way that they want it to, because the guy that they end up picking doesn't end up winning as well as they would like, and then he ends up losing some stuff, and they get involved, and they can't end up figuring out who they're going to pick as a leader, and it just turns into a civil war inside of Maratha. And the first war ends with everybody just kind of going back to their corner, but the second war is pretty bad for the Maratha. They're going to end up, the British East India Company is going to end up destabilizing Maratha, and the Maratha are going to end up losing a lot of territory to Nizam, who is this whole other group that ends up taking a big chunk of Maratha territory. The Rajputs in the north of Maratha are going to end up taking territory. This is a bad move in the Maratha world. They're also going to end up losing territory up around Delhi. By the end of the Third Maratha War in 1819, there's not very much of Maratha left. Let me see if I have a map of that. Yes, I do. So here we go. This is 1823. So by the time we get to 1823, here's what we've got. The British have control of Bengal, and they've moved up the rivers and taken all of this area around Delhi. Right, so Delhi's up here. They've moved into the Decca and taken some of this territory. They've taken over all of this area from the Carnatic Wars. Mysore still exists, but it is a puppet kingdom. Let's be very, very clear here. This is a puppet kingdom. This is not operating independently. The British have taken this region here, and the Maratha are basically only controlling scattered pieces of this region right here. Not looking very good for the Maratha, but looking real good for the British. Looking real good for the British. There is sort of a last gasp of Maratha power in 1843 at a place called Gwalior. The puppet ruler in Gwalior dies, and the British put his kid on the throne. But the kid is like really, really young, and the Maratha faithful see this as an opportunity to overthrow the British puppet ruler, put a guy on the throne that's theirs, and try to reestablish position. But it just doesn't work. And by 1843, Maratha doesn't exist anymore because the British dissolve it. They redraw all the boundary lines. They basically pretend that they don't exist anymore. They're effectively going to destroy the Maratha and their entire history. What up, Cave? Good to see you, man. You can just safely blame the British in this time period. The only people worse were maybe the Dutch. I don't know, man. If we're talking about the early 1800s, we can put the American expansion into the West right up there with it. If we're talking about wiping out native culture and committing genocide against people, man, I don't know. The British expansion into the West is pretty rough. How did the Maratha fight the Brits? Surely not in open field type stuff. Oh, they did. And Natty, what's actually really interesting here, and I thought about including this, but I didn't think I would have enough time. I'm actually making a lot better time than I thought that I would. We're not done yet. We've still got a lot of stuff to do, but I'm making better time than I thought that I would. The Maratha had some really wicked weaponry. If you've ever seen any of the really odd-looking weapons from India, it's probably a Maratha weapon. Lots of weapons that you hold in your hand, but are these big blades that kind of stick out, like these big pointy blades. And the handles are handles like this, and they come down here like this, and they have lots of Damascene blades that are kind of wiggly, curvy. They have like whip swords that are sharpened kind of springs of metal that you sort of sling around, and it's like a blender almost. It's rough. It's rough stuff. But yeah, I mean, they also had elephants, and the Maratha had guns to a certain extent too. Not much up from a nap. Cool. What up, Noger? Good to see you. The Americans were still sort of British. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, you learn from your parents, right? Anyway, moving on. So, with the Maratha gone, now the time is come to look this direction, specifically here, towards Burma, because, if we're going to be conquering this region, why not conquer this region too? Ask some Central African nations how the Belgians treated them. Yeah, that's true. Like Congo, yeah. Like half the population of Congo. What up, Lopta? Good to see you. Welcome back in. It's been a minute, but that's cool. Hope you're having a good one. Gotta have Burma. Gotta add it to the group. So we have 3 Anglo-Burmese wars, but we're only going to talk about 2 of them right now because the last one is later on. The first one is 1824 to 1826, and the second one is 1852 to 1853. So what ends up happening is that when the British took over Bengal, a lot of the little border zones right here were part of a confederacy or several small kingdoms. And the Kingdom of Burma was mostly situated down here in this big river valley and had been since, the last, at this point, probably 1,000 years, right? Or longer than that. The big city-states, the Pew city-states that we maybe have talked about a dozen times, right around this big valley, these rivers that connect to the ocean right here. This is sort of the heartland of the Burmese kingdom. But these little city-states around in here were basically going to be free for the picking. And the Burmese government starts expanding that way, attacking some of these smaller groups. And as a way to try to gain some level of independence, these little groups run to the British in Bengal, and they say, hey, the Burmese are treating us badly. Would you offer us some protection, and we'll be friends with you, and we'll trade with you? And of course, the company just sees dollar signs, and they're like, heck yeah, this sounds great, so we'll take you under our protection. But the Burmese government doesn't really care very much about dealing with a British trade company, so they continue to expand. But then the East India Company is going to use this as a reason for war, right? You've attacked our allies, and now you feel the wrath. And this is going to basically lead with an expansion of territory. And the first Anglo-Burmese war is going to result in a big old chunk of this territory right here basically just falling under control of the British. And the second war is literally provoked. It's the British want to take all of Burma and bring the whole thing into the territory, and they really want to go over and take Siam, which is modern-day Thailand, as well, but they need Burma along the way, right? So they decide we need to come up with a reason to go conquer Burma. And they end up provoking an absolutely needless and pointless naval battle, and that's what spirals into the Second Anglo-Burmese War, where they basically take over the rest of the country. So it's directly proportional. I'm sorry, it's directly unproportional. Like the stuff that happened to set off this war is not enough. They were just looking for a reason to conquer it. What'd you say Burma for? Yeah, right. I'm sure the Brits are totally going to protect them in the future. Nope. We need a reason. Like it's Tuesday. Yeah, this was supposed to be Tuesday. Oh, I see what you're saying. That the British needed a reason and they just made one up and it was Tuesday. What's up, Ivan? Good to see you, man. Hope you're having a good one. Lots of cool people in the chat tonight. Hope you are all doing well. All right. While all of these wars are going on, there are also other big developments going on the political organizational side of the company. So if we back up to 1834, there's going to be a position created called Governor General of India. And Governor General of India is specifically a position within the British East India Company that is positioned or appointed by the Crown to handle basically government level function inside of the territory held by the East India Company. Because at this point, the territory was a substantial portion of the entire subcontinent, and the government was getting a little bit skeptical of how powerful the company was. And creating the position of Governor General was the Crown's way of going, look, we see you. We're going to send some people. These people are going to be in charge, and you need to make sure that you're doing what they tell you to do. And the guy that's going to get this position first is this guy. This guy's name is James Ramsay. The first Governor General of India. This is in 18... and he's... Well, no, he's not the first one. He's just a really powerful one, sorry. He's in 1848 to 1856. This guy's going to be in charge of basically okaying a lot of this war stuff. The company's military power was starting to get a bit scary, and they kind of needed to ask for governmental control, or I'm sorry, governmental blessing, and he's going to end up giving them a lot of it. He's in a lot of these big decisions, and he is one of the guys that sort of architects the eventual transition that's about to happen, because when especially during his reign as Governor General of India, he makes it very clear to the royal authority at this time, who was Victoria, that the company was basically a superpower, and that if they weren't checked, they might end up rivaling the government itself. So Ramsay's really important in doing so. Also, we have an attempt by the British to invade this direction. So we're going to go take over Afghanistan. Yeah. How great does an invasion of Afghanistan sound, everybody? It goes about as well as you would expect. The armies invade Afghanistan, and they do really well to begin with, kind of because they showed up out of nowhere. This is the first Anglo-Afghan war. This is 1838 to 1842. They show up. They kick butt. They get all the way to Kabul, and then they realize how long their supply lines are stretched, and the Afghans figure out what's going on and decide to start fighting back. And oh boy, the retreat from Kabul is a shameful thing that makes a lot of people's career go bye-bye. The retreat from Kabul was humiliating, and it was one of the first times that the British had lost against an Asian force in a long time. And it was bloody. They lost a lot of people trying to retreat from Kabul. Never get involved in a land war in Asia, right? So is steampunk just colonial cyberpunk? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, maybe colonial era cyberpunk. Yeah, up the Khyber, because the Khyber Pass is such a great thing. We're just going to invade Afghanistan over here because it's easy to do, right? Anyway, after the humiliation in 1842 in Afghanistan, they decide, okay, well, these people are scary, so why don't we just conquer all of these people, which is basically modern day Pakistan? Why don't we take the Indus River Valley? And so they decide, yeah, we'll do that. That is actually accomplished with blazing speed. This entire region effectively falls in 6 months during 1843. And it is a combination of several reasons for that. They're going to have learned their lesson about really long supply lines, so they're going to involve Navy, and they're going to use the river a lot, and they're going to bring a gigantically large, overwhelming support network with their army, and they're going to bring lots of firepower. This is actually what makes the big difference here. A lot of this region had a fairly large network of fortifications that go all the way back to like the Sultanate of Delhi, which is one of the biggest reasons why they had not been able to take over Afghanistan, not just because of the geography, but because there's also natural fortifications that had been, not natural, but man-made fortifications that had enhanced natural positions that had been used for hundreds and hundreds of years. And the trip into Afghanistan didn't really bring enough of the big, heavy weaponry. When they decide to take Pakistan, they bring the big guns. And they roll up Punjab and this region right here called Sindh real fast. This is also going to be when they invade up into what is modern-day Jammu and Kashmir and take that area. And as a direct relationship of taking this region, this is going to kick off the First Anglo-Sikh War, which is in 1845 to 1846, where the government decides that they're going to basically kill all of the Sikhs in this region that were resisting territorial expansion. My brain keeps dropping the pertinent datum. Yes, this is a company. This is the East India Company. They are a joint stock company set up by British nobility and British merchants, and they are not the government of Britain. They have a charter that goes all the way back to the Stuarts in the 1600s that allows them to operate unilaterally. They have an unlimited length of that charter. It's not unlimited. The charter said that they could continue to operate as long as they did not have 2 years or 3 years of a loss in a row. So as long as they kept turning profits, they had a perpetual charter. If they made a loss 3 years in a row, their charter would have to go back before the king. But that happened in the 1600s, the early 1600s, and now we're into the mid 1850s. And they are still making literally a killing. And again, they have their own military, they have their own military structure, they have their own command structure, they have their own navy, they have the right to hire mercenaries. A lot of the armies of the East India Company were local people from India or Afghanistan or Nepal or Bengal that were hired as soldiers for the army. They were all being commanded by a upper echelon of British commands. A lot of people that were formerly in the British military rolled out of the military proper and into the East India Company's command structure of their military. And you could retire with a military pension from the company. It was basically a country of its own. But it wasn't a state, it was a company. You have these huge corporations that run everything. Weird, new, life-altering tech. Yeah. Imagine Microsoft conquering Afghanistan. or Amazon conquering the Amazon. Yeah, kind of like that. Do you own a red coat? If not, what? Dole conquering Hawaii. Yeah, the National Fruit Company conquering Guatemala. Yeah, there's a lot of these examples. So did the British company leaders use Brit battle tactics? Yeah. They had a pretty strict structure where you fought the way that they told you to fight. You might be allowed to use your weapons because the East India Company wasn't necessarily interested in arming you too much. So if they hired you, you would fight with your weapons, but you would fight with British tactics and in command with British officers. They would tell you where to go and how to attack, and the British would just adapt whatever battle plans they had to whatever soldiers they had and whatever those soldiers could do. But yeah, it's kind of a hodgepodge military. And a crazy powerful one. Now, in 1857, things are going to go really badly. And one of the reasons things goes really badly for the British is that a lot of these people that had been natives, and they get called a lot of different things, but this sometimes gets referred to as the Indian Rebellion. Sometimes it gets referred to as the Sepoy Uprising. The word Sepoy was a very common term for a local Indian person that had been drafted into the East India Company Army. But with all of this fighting, a lot of these local Indian people had a whole lot of experience. And in 1857, they're going to rebel. And this is an incredibly big rebellion, and it takes place in pretty much all of northern Indian territory. And this is going to be very, very damaging. It's going to be incredibly costly. More than 1 million people in India are going to die during this. And a lot of that comes from, Gatling guns. A lot of that comes from cannons. A lot of that comes from disease, because one of the things that the company decides to do as a way to contain this is to shut off the movement of food in the country. And without food moving around, people literally die from starvation. They also cut off medicine, and this allows lots of stuff to spread. Gatling guns makes you think of Amritsar. I'm not actually familiar with Amritsar. If you could fill me in, that'd be great. If it's not something you want to talk about, that's cool too. But this is really brutal. And when the British decide that they have to win this, the company decides we've got to win. They're going to finally kill off the last of the Mughal emperors, but that was a puppet position and had been for almost 100 years at that point. And they're going to regain control in 1858. But this is going to be the catalyst that finally makes the British government go, you can't run things anymore. And in 1858, the Parliament of Britain is going to pass something called the British India Act, which nationalizes the East India Company. And all of the territory controlled by the East India Company then becomes colonial India. And if we look at what that looked like, here we go. So all of the pink stuff is territory that had been conquered directly by the East India Company. Now, the yellow stuff was ruled by locals, but let's be very clear here, they did not have control. The yellow stuff was under puppet rulership by the British, because you can see here where the big boundaries are. These big, thick, heavy red lines, this is what's going around the outside of it. And if you are inside these things, you are under British control. And the India territory was huge. This is Pakistan all the way through what is modern-day Myanmar. Looks like they left Sri Lanka alone. They had the northern part of Sri Lanka for a long time, and they ended up making deals with that with the local Tamil leadership, and it was theoretically an independent kingdom, but if we're being for real, Sri Lanka didn't really have a lot of independent ability. It wasn't directly under British control, and it wasn't necessarily even a client kingdom, but it also wasn't really free to make its own decisions completely by itself. Most notably because the British at this point controlled everything in the region, and Sri Lanka just wasn't big enough to really stand up to them if they decided to bully them around, which they did very frequently. And of course, later on, they're going to end up just taking the whole island and adding it to the whole thing anyway. Because here's the deal. I've chosen to stop the discussion at the point where Britain takes over India as a colony. Victoria doesn't get crowned the Empress of India for another 20 years in the 1870s, and there's another 20 years of fighting. And then even after that, there's fighting all the way into the 19 teens. And even after that, there's fighting in World War I. We could continue this for probably another hour talking about wars between British people and the native peoples in this region. We just don't have time to do it because I sort of whirlwinded that entire thing anyway and left a lot of stuff out just to get to a point where I felt like I could sort of say, and now we're done. But we're not done because the fighting continued for decades more, just between the government of India, the government of England proper, and then other native Indian peoples. I'm sure the British government brought about sweeping changes to improve the life of their new colonial subjects, right? In some places, yes, absolutely. In other places, no, not really. There were social reforms. There are things that we could look at and go, yeah, the British did that right. One of the things that the British did that we can say, yeah, that was right, was the legal reforms that they did to ban things like sati. So there's a practice in certain parts of India, there's a traditional Hindu practice where a husband would die and a wife would get thrown on the funeral pyre with her dead husband as a way to send them to the afterlife together. And the British made them ban sati. There were also some particular practices with the procession of parades of Juggernaut, where people would literally be trampled to death during these religious processions as sort of human sacrifices to their gods. And the British were like, no, you can't do that. And they got rid of that. I don't know if we can really say it was necessarily a net positive because, I mean, the British killed millions of people in the process of doing this. And India today is still very, very messed up from the impacts of stuff that was happening in India during this time period that the British were doing. It's always hard to say overall. We could always point at the evils of colonialism, but in a lot of these cases, there were things that were bad that aren't around anymore. And I mean, they of course tried to do things like bring democracy, and they tried to bring rule of law. They tried to bring all of their culture. This, of course, is the white man's burden, that you maybe, if you've ever heard of Rudyard Kipling's poem, The White Man's Burden, that was about this time period. Bum ba-dum. Bum ba-dum dum dum. I don't know how to say that. From Kulvi Forhow. Question mark? I don't know if I said that right. How may I address you, my friend? But thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, of course, democracy is with finger quotes. Not everybody in India could vote, for sure. You can have a president as long as they're a monarch. Anyway. So that was the British in India. And it was a very abbreviated rush through version of the British in India. Would the partition of India be enough for a whole stream? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we could totally do a partition of India stream. So, there we go. For a too long didn't read. Yeah. There's sometimes streams are really easy to do, and you can get through the whole story. And other times it's just like, So if anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, I'd be happy to answer. There's a lot more to this story. There's a lot more to this story. You just got to hit the wave tops sometimes, though, right? Also, if anybody wants to redeem channel points or has any questions about anything like that, now is a good time. Otherwise, we'll try to see who is around. Oh, I need to ask about this. Can you see the final map again? Sure. Oop, wrong button. There we go. I built these, really great hotkeys, and I keep hitting the wrong hotkey because that's really easy to do. Uh, 15 minutes and try to explain the Holy Roman Empire. We've talked about the Holy Roman Empire a lot. And honestly, if somebody had said, hey, let's talk about the Holy Roman Empire, I would say, no, we can't do that. Because, that's 1,000 years of history, right? It goes all the way from Charlemagne to basically Napoleon. So you can't do 1,000 years crammed down into one thing. I would ask for somebody to narrow that down. Like, are we talking about Habsburgs? Are we talking about the end of the Holy Roman Empire? We've already actually talked about the beginning of the Holy Roman Empire. We've done that on 30, or in the. It's about 30 streams ago, yeah. I can't remember how far back. Yeah. So during the partition of India, which happened in the 1900s after World War II, Pakistan and Bangladesh were created as basically Pakistan, and this was West Pakistan, and this was just referred to as East Pakistan, and you get Myanmar split off in India. At that time, Sri Lanka was part of India, as was most of this stuff over here. That whole thing was a giant mess and resulted in tens of millions of people dying, and I'm not even joking, there was a genocide over here in the 70s when the Bengali people in Bangladesh wanted to break away from the ruling government over here in Pakistan, and India decided to help Bengal, but the war spilled out of Bengal, and people in this region of India were targeted for genocide. It was really, really, really freaking rough. And now Indians are doing some Israel-Palestine stuff. Yeah. Kashmir up here is one of these countries. Like, if we go over here, well, let me actually do this guy. If we go over here, and by the way, I see all of these redeems, and we'll get to those in just a second. We've just got some good questions and comments. If we zoom into this region right here, we're going to start seeing these borders start turning red and orange, right? Because this territory is still very much debated. Who owns what, who has what territory, who's directly in control of this, who's directly in control of that. China owns some of what used to be Kashmir. Pakistan oversees what used to be part of Kashmir. It's now called Jammu. India is turning their part of Kashmir basically into they're basically trying to take it over directly. Kashmir is the best Led Zeppelin song. Fight Me. It's a good one. It's a good one. I don't know if it's the best one. When the Levee Breaks might be my favorite. So I mean, I'm a big Zeppelin fan. There are no that like the sorry. There's not really a wrong answer about what's the best. Well, I mean, there are objectively wrong answers, but like I don't know. I've never actually sat down and like played the game of what's my best, what's my favorite thing. Okay, so what's in the news? Oh man, there's so much stuff in the news. I don't know what do I want to talk about. I guess the thing that I could talk about that just happened, like right before stream started. Palestine had applied to the United Nations to be a country. They basically wanted the United Nations to recognize them as a country. And the United States vetoed the petition. So that's a big one. That's a big one. That sends signals. We'll just say that way. This is going to be. This is going to affect the. So Nixlotl, the specific thing that Palestine was asking for is UN recognition that they are a country. So a country is only a country to the extent that other countries say, yes, you are a country. And there are countries that recognize Palestine as a country, but not the United Nations. If the United Nations voted as a governing body and said, yes, Palestine is a nation by itself, oh boy, that would be a big one, right? Because this is now the majority of countries on Earth that recognize Palestine as an independent state. And that is going to put a lot of pressure on Israel to treat it like it's a state. And then other countries are going to start making treaties with Palestine and opening ambassadorial positions in Palestine. And they're going to normalize relations with Palestine. And that's going to really make Israel's position way more complicated. So when the U.S. said, no, the United Nations in general will not recognize that was very telling. That's a fair question, though. So that's a big one. That's a big one that happened in the news. That's a big, big news moment. And Tuna wants the standard question book. Okay. Marvel Girls told surprisingly mad about Pakistan. I didn't get all the way through Marvel Girl. You're telling me that Biden is talking out of both sides of his mouth? Yeah, well, I'm just telling you that I didn't think he was going to win in the first place, but I don't think he's going to win Michigan at all. And I had previously thought that Minnesota was sort of in the bag for him, but now I think Minnesota might be a purple state. No man is an island, but if I were, I think I'd be flat home. I'm not sure where that island is, Lofto. I think your favorite two Led Zeppelin songs are Misty Mountain Hop and Immigrant Song. Immigrant Song is a good one. It's a good one. When the Levee Breaks is good. Yeah. All right, so this is the standard question book. Standard question book and home study outlines. For those of you that might be new to the channel, this is 107 years old now. And it is a prep book that would get you ready to take exams in home study history college courses. So if you were doing correspondence courses in the early 1900s to get college credit, you would need to use this book to study. The kicker here is I don't have the materials that go along with it. I just have a book full of questions. So here's what we do. We open up the book to a random page, like, say, I don't know, let's get one really early on. Like here. And then I just sort of run my finger down and go, you. And then we look at this question and I read it and I ask or figure out if we can answer the questions. What brilliant service did John Paul Jones render to the American colonists? So this is an interesting one. John Paul Jones was a naval brilliant dude and was instrumental in helping the American Navy kind of get off the ground. We have images of this guy. Let's go to the web. If I could get my mouse to work. Mouse, what are you doing? Work, function. Thank you. There we go. Here we go. Here's John Paul Jones. One of the greatest naval commanders in the history of the United States. He is going to be super big in basically getting the Navy off the ground. He, of course, when America became an independent nation, it really didn't have a Navy very much. It basically had 2 ships, and they weren't really originally designed to be battleships. But John Paul Jones was going to be the big deal. He's going to help found the American Navy as a group. He's also going to be important in establishing the American Naval Academy that's in Maryland. Big dude in the American Revolution and subsequently in War of 1812. So that's the great service that John Paul Jones did for America. He helped set up their Navy. If he loses Minnesota, that's crazy since we haven't voted in a Republican. Yeah, but I mean, it's the number of the number of immigrant people in Minnesota, and especially the number of Middle Eastern people in Minnesota, is going to probably swing Minnesota. I don't know. Well, it's going to be close. I mean, I would never have considered it a toss-up until he did this thing, but this thing is big. This is really big, and I don't know if it's for sure going to lose him Minnesota, but it might. He's definitely lost Michigan now, though. Like, there's no way he's winning Michigan. What's in the news as of 3 minutes ago? I don't know. What does this say? Israeli missiles hit a site in Iran. Oh, wow. I did miss this. Let's go to the web and look at this. And this is me seeing this for the first time. When did this come out? Oh, yeah, like I was on stream when this happened. Unleashed a retaliatory strike against Israel, sending more than da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, but where's the Israeli updates? Israel aborted 2 planned retaliatory strikes against Iran. Israel had planned and then aborted at least 2 retaliatory strikes against Iran this week. Source. Okay, let's just go to the news and we'll see what's up with this. Okay, it doesn't look like they've actually hit anything. 8 flights have been diverted over Iranian airspace. Heightened geopolitical risk. Okay, so it looked like the headline that you shared, Cave, was clickbaity. U.S. official has confirmed to ABC News Israeli missiles have hit a site in Iran, and the officials could not confirm whether Syria and Iraq sites were hit as well. Okay. Yeah, the Bonhomme Richard, indeed. John Paul Jones was half of the Beatles. Yeah. Yeah, Same guy, right? Can't believe Orange Boy is even able to run for prez. Yeah, he will. He will, and he's going to win. Okay, gotcha. More rockets at each other. Yeah. ABC seems to be the only one with a report so far. Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, now we are caught up. So before we go, because this was a viewer request stream, we need to make sure that we get a topic for our next viewer request stream. And since this one was voted on, the next one should be a purchase. So let me look at the list. I don't think JMR Killer is in the room. I don't think Rethius is in the room. Ali Briggs, are you in the room and perhaps lurking? Maybe not. Okay. I know Viper is here. Viper, are you still here? I don't actually see Viper in the list. Oh, there you are. Okay, so this is weird that you show up in the chat, but you don't show up on the list. But that's Twitch is weird. Do you still want to purchase a stream for Australian Aboriginal peoples? Are you still... Okay, so let me go turn all that on. Wrong button. Channel points. Manage rewards. Choose your own again. All right, you should have that now if you want to hit your redemption. Pretty much everybody at this point that's been in the room for 5 minutes probably has enough points to buy one of these. Or 10. So, okay, that's what we'll do next time then. And I'll take your name off of the list. Wow. All right. Okay. Yeah. Cool beans. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions or any other point redemptions or anything like that? Now would be a good time to do so. Otherwise, we can work on perhaps going on a raid. Community challenge is 75% complete. Will I stream during World War III? Probably. Assuming that the internet still works. I might live stream my Conquest of the Wasteland. Man, I really hope we don't end up in World War III. Alright, Nixlotl has redeemed Tradle. Let's go to web. Okay, so as a reminder of what Tradle is, this is a game that's everything is dull now, right, because of Wordle. But the game here is to try to determine what country exports this stuff. We've got 6.2 billion, which is a fairly not a big country, but bigger than some island in the middle of nowhere. And what are we looking at that we're exporting? Oil. We're exporting oil, titanium, gold, precious metals. We've got rare metals, tantalum, vanadium, zirconium, cement, salt, crude oil, clay, quicklime, phosphoric acid, non-fillet frozen fish. Okay, so whole frozen fish. We got some mollusks, all right. Coconuts, Brazil nuts, and cashews. Okay, so we've got something that's got some coastline stuff. Ground nuts, rice, other vegetables, steel bars, scrap copper, lead. So lots of mining, obviously. And by the way, once again, I can't see your chat right now. have you covered up so that I can try to make my first guess without chat involvement. Soups and broth, processed crustaceans, processed fish. So I'm really feeling like malt extract. Okay, tobacco. Yeah. So okay, we've got something maybe in the Americas, in perhaps South America. But we're not necessarily one of the big countries in South America, because if we were one of the big countries, we would have um, a higher export. But 13.3% of their export is refined petroleum, so I'm thinking that they're probably northern coast of South America, around Venezuela, maybe. Because we know that Venezuela has a lot of petroleum, and obviously here the gold is an example of mining, and the crustacean stuff. So it can't be too terribly big though. Like, I don't think it's Venezuela, because 6 billion in exports is way less than what Venezuela would do. I'm going to guess Trinidad and Tobago. And I am way off. I am so far off. So far off. Okay, so we're going to go all the way. Gosh, that's all the way across the ocean. That's all the way in Africa. All right, now I'll look at chat. I have not seen Fallout. It does definitely have a coast. Well, I don't know how. Yeah, see, I was thinking Suriname as well, but yeah, it's going to have to be in Africa somewhere. Thinking West Africa, yeah. So I mean, along the western coast of Africa, that's going to be possible, especially with the gold. But again, small country on the west coast of Africa that has gold and oil reserves. Oh man, that's going to be tough. And see some of the, like, what are some of the small countries? It's going to be. It's probably not going to be Ivory Coast. Probably won't be Ghana. Let's go with Benin. Let's like, Benin is a smaller country that has a coastline, that has some gold reserves, that might be around this level of export. Okay, so we're way closer now. We're way closer, but we've moved too far east, so we need to move back up Western Africa. So Botswana is just. I mean, if we would have gone with the initial guess here, that would have been a better guess. But with the additional situation here that we need to go this direction, Botswana would be to the south and east of Benin. Gambia, that's actually not a bad guess. Let's go with Gambia. Really close. Really, really close. Eritrea would be on the other side of Africa. So this one right here from Benin kills that, because it would be to the east of Benin. I mean, we're like right next door to Gambia. So I mean, we're going to go with Togo. No, now I've moved too far. What's next door to Gambia? Oh man, my geography is failing me. Goodness gracious, I should know all of this stuff. I should know all of this stuff off the top of my head. Okay, again, it can't be Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is just too big. I guess is it... Well, no, wait. Gambia is the Gambia. And it's completely surrounded by Senegal. So we're going to have to go with Senegal. And I would almost bet you... Yeah, there we go. Boom. Okay. Yeah. Get your head straight, McInnes. Get your freaking head straight. Okay. Yeah, Senegal. Yep. Okay. Northeast Gambia. Yeah, exactly. What was that site again? I don't know what site. Oh, Tradle. Here, I can... Here you go, Natty. Senegal is big, but it doesn't have a big population. If we look at it on the map, Senegal is... Let me get my borders. It's fairly large, but it's also very, very desert. Like this up here, part of Senegal, very sparsely populated. Very, very sparsely populated. So, not a very high population, but surrounding the Gambia. And so here was my initial guess here, Benin, and then it was like, go this way, and I'm bad with kilometers, so anyway, okay, let's do Worldle. Let's go over here. Where's my link to Worldle? All right, so here's Worldle. And oh, you can't see any of this. Have I set up a hotkey for that? Well, that's not the right. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the way that Worldle works is it shows us this outline of a country, and then we have to guess what it is. And well, you know, it's a bit of a mess. Okay. These ones that are all like kind of clumpy. That's a 2. Why is there a 2 there? Shoot. Man, I don't know this one off the top of my head. Okay, so let me just try to talk it out. Okay, we've got a coastline. Right, this is a natural coastline. This is obviously a river coastline, a river line here and a river line here. So we've got something with the ocean to the north, or some big body of water to the north. Geez. And it's that weird shape where it's like it could be lots of stuff. Shoot, I don't know. Yeah, see, here's the thing. Like, normally I would just sit here and stare at it forever and never actually make a guess because I would just sort of paralyze myself. But I'm kind of done with stream and I don't want to just sit here forever and just stare at this. So we're gonna. I guess we'll just start guessing. But I don't even really know where to start guessing. I guess it could be Poland. Is it Poland? Maybe. Okay. Fine, it's Poland. Okay. I didn't. My brain was telling me that Poland was thicker, like it came down further this way, but it was the only one that I could think of that had like a flat border across the top of it like this. That had this little kick down here at the bottom too. Yeah, I'm just thinking too hard. I do this to myself all the time though. So I guess we can do the bonus rounds. All right, so here we go. Bonus round. Can we guess the neighbors of Poland? Okay, I can do this. Ukraine. Guess. Can do Czechia. No, it's CZ. Czechia. Guess. Shoot. That's Russia, but it doesn't actually border Russia. It borders that little part of Russia right there at Kaliningrad. Lithuania. That's what that one is. Lithuania. I make myself guess these in the order that they're listed. Slovakia. That's Germany. That's Belarus. Next bonus round. What is the capital of Poland? That is Warsaw. What is the flag of Poland? I know this because I watch World Cup. What are the two most spoken languages in Poland? I'm going to guess Polish. What's 1.4%? Is it German? Ooh, I guess we could guess German. I don't know if it is German. It might be Russian. Is it Russian? I don't think it's Russian. Is it Lithuanian? Dang it. Hey, there we go. Silesian. Oh, I should have... Oh, friggin... Okay. Yeah, that's right. How do you say my name is in Polish? I have no idea. What looks Polish to me? This isn't it. I don't know. I'm just going to guess this because I'm not good at either of these. What is the population of Poland? Poland's got a pretty high population, right? I mean, I guess. Like, I would say, yeah, okay, bigger than that. What, Poland is in the Eurozone? Oh, they're not in the Eurozone. Interesting. Oh, I knew that. Stupid idiot. Biggest cities in... Lodz. Krakow, Wrocław. And I'm guessing here. I don't know all of this. Ooh, did I just... Wait, what happened? Can I go back? Oh, I skipped it. I skipped it, crap. Warsaw, Lodz, Krakow, Wrocław, guess. I got all of those wrong. Okay. How big is it? That's a great question. I'm so bad. I don't know, man. I'm so bad with kilometers. It's a big country, but it's not like super big. I don't think it's this. It's one of these two. This one? Nope. Less than this one. Okay. I was wrong. Okay. Anyway. Not so great at all of that, I guess. But there we go. Not Flatholm. Okay. I am thinking too hard. Have I tried Nurdle? I don't know what Nurdle is. Here's more stuff about Israel thing happening. Explosions heard near Iranian site of Isfahan. Iranian news agencies report. Isfahan, nah. Okay. Not sure what that is. Yeah, so if we look at the map, Nixlotl, there's a little exarchate. This little part right here. This is Kaliningrad. And that's technically part of Russia. It just doesn't touch Russia. This was agreed to basically be part of Russia so that Russia could have a port that was on this part right here that wasn't frozen over, because St. Petersburg is really friggin' cold. But yeah, that's part of Russia right there. That borders Poland. English, Ukrainian. Yeah, I mean, English is... what's Silesian? What's up, Allie? Silesian is a particular type of a Slavic language. So back when we go to the early medieval Polish state, there were different types of Slavic people. They weren't at that time all just generally referred to as Polish. And one of the groups was Silesian. And it makes sense to me now that I saw that, but I would not have dragged that out of my brain. You know, pivo means beer. It is bigger than I thought as well, or it's smaller than I thought. Nurdle game, daily numbers game. Nope, Shane doesn't do math or numbers. I don't like numbers. That was a great round, but could use some polish. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I fudged a lot of that stuff at the end. Once I figured out what it was, I knew a lot of the early stuff, but when it gets to like the size and the like the individual, how do I say this in this thing, I wish I knew more, but I don't know all languages. It would be cool if I did, though, right? Okay, let's see who is streaming. We are not going to continue to gild the lily. McInnes is tired, and McInnes wants to go not be on. So who is streaming right now? And of course I say that, and then I've got a friend that just signed on. Is he starting soon? Yes, still starting soon. Alright, we're going to play a little bit more of like... you can't speak all languages, you just need to drink the water of life. That's, I guess, a thing, right? Or get a babblefish and stick it in my ear. But that you technically then don't speak all languages, you can just understand all languages, so... I guess I can give a brief update on travel. If you haven't been in stream for a while, you might not have heard that I am going to Belize and Guatemala. We do have dates set. We're leaving the 13th of May and coming back the 23rd of May. So there's that. We've been working on itinerary, which has been very, very frustrating. I have rebuilt the itinerary 3 times to try to accommodate my travel partner and his sort of newfound pickiness that's being a little bit disruptive. He's getting older and is not as adventurous. And I'm sitting here like, I don't care if I sleep in a hotel room that doesn't have air conditioner for a night because I'm only going to be there for a night and I'm going to be so friggin' tired it doesn't really matter. And he's like, I don't know, man, air conditioner is good. And I'm like, but it's out of the way and it adds 35 minutes to our drive the next morning. And he's like, let's get the place with the air conditioner. And I'm like, whatever. Yeah, inside is not outside. And there's a ceiling fan in all of those rooms. So, I mean, I can just sweat and sleep on top of the covers. I don't really give a crap. It's a night, right? It's a night. But, I don't know. Maybe, do I have my... Okay, I don't have my pins for Belize and Guatemala, but I can maybe talk about this a little bit. And we're basically waiting on Prof to actually get up and be streaming. He's been coming soon now for like 6 minutes. So you fly in basically to Belize City, which is actually the capital up here. Yeah, Prof is streaming, but he's not up yet. He's still coming soon. So we're going to come here, and there's a place called Altun Ha. I mean, it's a night, right? It's a night. We're going to go right here. There's a place called Altun Ha. We're going to go up here. There's a city right here called Corozal, and there's a couple places there. Santa Rita and Cerros. And over in this region, there's a little place called La Milpa that's kind of up in the jungle right here. Right here is a big place called Lamanai that we're going to go see. What's the nature and goal of my trip? To explore places that I've never been before. I would love to say that I have actual academic desire or something like writing something or getting something done, but nah, not really. Just going to kind of go hang out. Give me a dirt floor in a small family's home. The only thing there is small family's home has typhus or typhoid, and I don't really want typhoid. You should put these dates in the Discord. Have the memory of a senile goldfish. There's a question like so when I went to Turkey last time, the last international trip that I went on was in 2022, and I went to Turkey. And I did a lot of extra stuff for that, and like I made a completely new Discord, and I solicited donations, and I still feel weird about asking for people to help me pay for that, so I'm not going to do that again. But how would you all like to be kept up to date on this? Like, I don't know if I necessarily want to make another Discord. So, like, I can do updates here in chat, or in the stream when I come up with new stuff. Or maybe I'll just, I don't know, make a channel in the Discord, perhaps. And it'll just be, well, maybe I could, I mean, there's already one there called Field Trips. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's already a channel in Discord called Field Trips. I think I'll just post stuff there, and I'll try to work on some of that stuff. Yeah. You would not be able to do it. You'd be up all night sweating. Yeah, the thing is, like, we're just going to be run to death. Why is there a shipyard in the middle of the forest? I don't know. You need an alternative to raid. Yeah, I mean, we've raided Professor Ashley multiple times, and I already follow her. We followed her a lot. Or we've raided her a lot of times. You should solicit donations and buy a stream deck so there aren't 5 instances of "That was the wrong button" each stream. I've considered that, but also no, because it's be something to have to program, and I'm lazy, and who cares about wrong buttons? Also, it's just weird for me to ask for money. I still feel really weird about the whole, hey, give me money to go to Turkey thing. And my friends are like, are you going to do that again? And I'm like, no. Not at all. Not at all. uh, I haven't even asked for money for Gundam stuff since then. Okay, so we're going to go raid Prof or Prof. And we haven't rated him for a while. He's a cool guy. Prof or Prof is a teacher as well. He teaches sociology stuff and philosophy stuff. And he mostly streams Bloodborne, which is a game that I really like. So we're going to go raid Prof or Prof. When we get there, our battle cry is adventure. And if you've got any of our friggin' cool emotes, throw that junk in the mix. And yeah, I will try to stream again over the weekend. It probably won't be Saturday. It may be Sunday. Sunday's actually Brittany and my's anniversary, but we're going to go out on Saturday to celebrate because the restaurant that we like to go to for our anniversaries is closed on Sunday. So we'll be celebrating that on Saturday, but I might see you on Sunday. But anyway, let's go say to Prof. Ooh, I got to say thanks. Sorry for people that I forgot to say thanks to. These people are really cool. Thank you for supporting me. I really appreciate you. Let's go say hey to Prof.
There was a time where I kind of only listened to 2 Chainz. It wasn't for very long, but it existed. Oh, you're EST, cool. Nice, how long you been married? What the f*** is up, shit? What the f*** is going on, motherfuckers? What's up, Raiders? Shane McGinnis is the history buff you never knew you needed. From the British conquest of India to the Knights of Malta, they're all about debunking the boring stereotype with a side of wit and charm. True. Tune in for their